everyone, and welcome to Green Healing. Today I want to share with you a recipe for a brew that I drink for my burnout, adrenal fatigue, which helps me heal the adrenal fatigue, start to recover from it a bit more prominently than when I wasn't drinking this brew. By the way, as a disclaimer, this is not medical advice. This is not a replacement for professional medical advice from a professional medical advisor. I'm simply sharing something that I take that helps me. Perchance it might also help you. And as usual, you should always research herbs before you take them to make sure that they are compatible with your body. First, I'm going to tell you the ingredients for this brew. There are 5 herbs that I'm using, and so I'm going to tell you what their benefits are. Then I'm going to explain how to make the brew, the procedures in herbology with these kinds of herbs, and then I'm going to explain the benefits. These types of herbs, they are best taken intensely for 2 or 3 days, so drinking it twice or 3 times a day for 2 or 3 days, and then to stop those herbs for at least 1 to 2 weeks to let your body fully absorb it, to let it do. Otherwise, the body is going to get too used to these herbs, and the herbs' benefits aren't going to be able to activate as much. The first ingredient in this brew is licorice root. If you can see the root, what it looks like, it has a nice smell. It's naturally sweet, so it'll make the brew taste sweet. And these types of brews, you don't add sugar to, you don't add honey to them, you just drink them as is. Licorice root is good for adrenal fatigue, the whole adrenal system, the immune system itself. It also has other benefits as well, such as heartburn and gastrointestinal problems, food poisoning, eczema, and tooth decay. Several benefits just from one herb. Licorice root is the first ingredient, the base of this brew. Then I put nettles. This is a bag full of nettles. It is the leaf of the plant. It's a tonic. It's good for iron. It's good for weakness and fatigue, because when you're burnt out, when you have adrenal fatigue, it's a prolonged illness. It's a prolonged physical illness caused by psychological disorders such as anxiety, and the weakness and the fatigue causes more anxiety. So this is going to help reduce some of the weakness and fatigue, which will help reduce some of the anxiety. But I have ingredients for the anxiety too. It's also good for sore joints, and it stabilizes the blood sugar. I'll also be putting in echinacea. So echinacea boosts the immune system, and it's good for colds, for influenzas, it's good for fever and sore throat. So sometimes I'll skip the echinacea in this brew if I feel just physically tired. But at this time of year, around the cold period, it's normal to feel a bit more tired than usual. The sun isn't out as much, and everyone around us has colds and flus, and we don't want to get caught getting those colds and flus. And if we do, when we have adrenal fatigue, it crashes the immune system so intensely, it takes a long time to recover. So it's important to boost the immune system and avoid getting sick at all costs. That's why I put echinacea, especially if I'm feeling iffy. This really helps boost the immune system to fight potential colds and flus. And this is what the echinacea looks like. It is the stem of the plant. Chamomile, which is the flower and leaves, usually a little mix of both, but mostly the flower. It helps assimilate calcium. It calms and soothes, so it's good for anxiety, which will help reduce the iffiness, help boost the immune system, because we won't be as anxious about getting sick or as anxious about the burnout that we are experiencing. It's good for nerves and irritability. It's good for pain, such as disc, gout, and other types of pain in the body. It's good for insomnia. So a lot of us who have adrenal fatigue also have a lot of anxiety, also have a lot of trouble sleeping. Most of us have either insomnia or somnophobia or both. I happen to have both. Insomnia and somnophobia, which is the fear of falling asleep. So that doesn't help when adrenal fatigue, because to heal adrenal fatigue, you need to be able to sleep. The adrenal fatigue makes us tired in our bodies, but we're not sleepy that we can sleep, but we're so exhausted we can't do much physically. But we need to be able to do certain physical activities, not just around the house, but to be able to spend physical energy, to be able to feel tired, to be able to sleep well. And so that will help with that also. It helps reduce the insomnia and the somnophobia, to be able to sleep more, because sleeping more helps the adrenal fatigue. And yes, we are always tired, and we'll have to sleep more for a bit to be able to have the wakeness that we used to have with the same amount of energy that we used to have, but it takes time, obviously. So insomnia. It's also good for inflammation and digestion. And the fifth ingredient in this brew, which is my personal tonic, it's my herb that I am the most compatible with. I believe that everybody has a herb with which they are the most compatible, that speaks directly to them, that is them, their personality. Mine is lemon balm, and this is what it looks like. It is a bit of stems, mostly the leaves. Lemon balm is excellent for nervous tension, for fever, and for depression and melancholy. So how do you make a brew? Because you can't just put everything in there. So first you need to determine how much you want, what the quantity that you want is. And it doesn't need to be a super precise measurement. I don't measure in cups. I use the cup that I'm gonna be drinking from. So I put 3 of these with extra, so about half of this as extra, to make room for evaporation and for the absorption, because the leaves and flowers are going to absorb the water a bit. I already have the water in here. You put the water to boil. Once it's boiling, first you always put in the roots. So in this case, I would put in the licorice root and hard stems. So you can put the echinacea with roots, or you can put it after. When you put the roots and hard stems in, then you turn down the heat to about, I put it to 3, and you give it a little stir with a spoon and you cover it. And then you leave it like that for 20 minutes. And then when the 20 minutes are done, you add the soft stems, leaves, and flowers. And then once they're in, you give it a stir, you turn the heat off, but you keep the pot on the stove top that it was cooking on, and you cover it, and you leave it for another 20 minutes. And then it's good to drink. Of course, it might be a little bit hot. It's good to let it cool a little bit once you pour it, so that it's not scalding. You can drink it hot, you can drink it cold. After a few hours, it becomes room temperature. After the first day, it's good to keep it in the fridge, otherwise it won't keep the 2-3 full days. And for the amount that you put in, I always use a regular teaspoon, and the amount of teaspoons is equivalent to the amount of cups of water that you put in. So I put in 3 cups, so I'm gonna put 3 teaspoons, and that's heaping. Not over heaping, but it's not flat either. It's like a generous amount, kind of bulge heaping. So I'm going to brew this brew up And then I'm going to share the taste that it does and all the benefits in the process of how it can help with adrenal fatigue. Licorice root tends to bubble when you put it in initially, so you can just blow on it a little bit, give it a stir to get the leaves and roots that may have stuck from the bubbles, and then it calms down when you turn it to 3. And that's the solution for the bubbles. I always put a little bit of extra of the lemon balm. And it's good to squash them down into the water while you're giving them a stir. And as an aside, since instead of just making the brew, I was also doing this video, it used up some of my energy. So right now I'm very eager for this brew to be complete, because I feel out of breath, low energy, shortness of breath, kind of just drained, pulled together, pulled down. I feel it, I usually feel it here in the sternum or in the abdomen when I feel the adrenal fatigue. Sometimes I'll also feel it, a bit of hotness in my head if I'm just feeling heavy and kind of iffy. Different people will feel their adrenal fatigue, their burnout a bit differently. Some people will be able to do more in less time or more in more time. Depending on the day, when I'm feeling really optimal, I can do a lot more. But on some days, I gotta lean, there really isn't much that I can do. And so I have to be selective. If you're experiencing that also, and it's been a few years, like for me, it's been a few years, it's perfectly normal. And the reason I'm making this brew is because I don't take medication. I'm allergic to everything that's chemical. Some people have medication that's like a little boost for them. I don't have that boost. So some people choose not to take medication because they want to be able to get into their own rhythm and everything. So it's, you know, your journey, your healing, it's your choice. And it's normal to feel this, like what I'm feeling right now. It's just like, I've been awake for many hours also. So there's that, because of the insomnia and the somnophobia. And this time of year is also more stressful. Typically, every person has that moment, those moments that are more stressful, either in the week, in the day, you know. So it's good to take note of that, to figure that out. And then a brew like this can be taken at the most optimal time. I don't take it in the middle of the summer when I'm all, that's bad energy. When I'm really have a lot of energy, I'm going outside a lot, I'm able to do so many things in my day or night, depending on how my rhythm is at that time. I don't need to drink the brew at that time. But at this time of year, and when I'm feeling really low, that's the time to take the brew. It helps initially with the low. It's not caffeinated, but it'll give me a little bit of a boost. There are times when I drink it where it helps me fall asleep. And there are times where, depending when it is, If I take it shortly after waking up, it gives me a bit of a boost. If I take it when it's time for me to go to bed, it helps. It seems to do what it needs to do at the time that I take it. That's why I take it, 2-3 times in the day. That's while I'm drinking it. A few days after I've stopped drinking it, I feel tired, but not in, yes, I still feel the fatigue in my body, the exhaustion, but I also feel sleepy, really, really sleepy for up to a week. So I'm able to fall asleep more easily, and I'm able to sleep a bit more, which is necessary for the adrenal fatigue. And then after maybe another week or so, I start to gain more energy. Fridge goes off again, and it might be different for different people. And that's why it's good to research the herbs and to test. Sometimes what I do is I test a new herb on its own before I test it with other herbs. But together, the brew, it's a good brew. It helps soothe the anxiety, it helps with the sleep pattern. It depends on the day, it depends on the time of day or night, it depends on the time of year, of week, and it'll be different for everyone. So notice these patterns, and notice when you're at your peak, and notice when you're at your lowest. And when you're at your lowest, that's the optimal time to take the brew. When you drink it, the licorice root makes it sweet. The nettles and the echinacea don't have the best flavor, so you taste them a little bit initially. The echinacea, you taste it a little bit initially, and the nettles a little bit in the aftertaste. But the licorice root, you also taste it initially and in the aftertaste, which is kind of sweet. The lemon balm doesn't have a very strong flavor, and the chamomile is naturally flavorful, and so it subdues the nettles and the echinacea as well. So the taste of nettles and echinacea is very subtle in comparison to the flavor, the taste of the chamomile, which is a little bit more prominent, and the most prominent is the licorice root. If you find the licorice root a little too prominent, you can always put a little bit less in your recipe. I like to have the flavorful. If the brew tastes too potent, you can always dilute it with a bit more water. Sometimes I'll add a bit of water to dilute it. Sometimes I'll drink it more strong, and you'll see. At first, you might be able to only take smaller amounts at a time if you've never drunk brews like this before. So I like to sip it slowly. I like to, take my time. It's not a bad tasting brew. You don't have to gulp it down as quickly as possible to get it over with. You can sip it like tea. It's just different palates like different things. I have a nice little net that I use. So before you pour, I always give it an extra stir. You might want to pour over the sink depending what kind of pot you have, if it has a tendency to spill. This one usually is fine. Oh, it spilled a tiny bit. And always put the herbs back in. So you always put the herbs back in so that they can be even more potent, do even more while they sit. I can really smell the chamomile this time. I think I put more chamomile than last time. And I think that's good because I've been having a lot of sleep problems these days. So this is going to come in handy, and it's too hot, so I'm going to need to dilute it. Yeah, the chamomile is definitely stronger this time. And the aftertaste, I taste the echinacea and the nettles and the chamomile in the first sip. Lemon balm, I know it's in there, but it doesn't have a strong taste. And the aftertaste, the licorice is most potent in the aftertaste in this batch. Different batches, because it's not super precise, different batches will have slightly alterations to the flavor. And you'll also find you know, which alteration you prefer. Sometimes you might want to put more of this, more of that. It really depends. Yeah. So I hope that this has helped you in brew making and with your burnout, adrenal fatigue, maybe also your anxiety, maybe your CPTSD. If you like what I do on green healing, I have links in the description how you can support me. And in future videos, I do intend on getting more into the healing stuff, but I'm still also preparing more episodes in regards to the types of abuse. I also am preparing some relaxing Tibetan singing bowl tracks that I composed with background soothing music and some guided meditations to help with, that have helped me, that I kind of came up with on my own. So I'm going to be sharing that as well, with some of those as well, in the hopes that it can also help you. So remember, empower yourself and be emotionally free. And cheers.